Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will stand on the existing protocols and I will just want to thank the organizers of this event, this very special event themed the forum. And it's my pleasure to be representing our CEO, Mr. Ifie Sekibo, who is unavoidably unable to attend this event because he's previously scheduled another engagement that, of course, is around the same time as this program is holding. So he has mandated me to reach out to you and to share his thoughts as far as strategies to boost economic prosperity is concerned. My name is Segun Akonji and I also work here at the Heritage Bank. So on that note, I would just want to talk to us on a few points which I believe can help us develop some underlying philosophy towards ensuring that we start to assess prosperity and bring that kind of opportunity to the mass of our people. Because a prosperous country is a country where the mass of the people enjoy the good life. So if we're talking about strategies to boost economic prosperity, I think one of the things we all say is that no peace, no prosperity. So on that note, I would say security is the foundation of prosperity. And so you cannot achieve much where there is no peace. So we will say that there is the need for us to strive towards a peaceful nation. And of course, somebody would then ask, what much can I do towards the realization of that? So I'm going to say that it behoves on us to know our neighbors and support various government agencies that are to provide us security, irrespective of the level of trust we think we don't have in them. They are there to still support and help us to live secure. However, on a slightly higher note, I think one of the things that we need to achieve as a country is the issue of a functional and value-adding identity management, which is still far away from us. Yes, some people will know that we have the BVN, we have the NIMC, and a few other identity capture systems, but they have not been as functional and value-adding. And when you consider, for example, what we call the social security number that most people in advanced economics carry, that is you. You commit a crime, for example, you know that as long as your face is captured, at that point, you know you'll be seen, you will be found. You can't run for too long from the law, from the arm of the law, because there is a database that is accessible countrywide, and they can provide the representation of you and everything about you, your residence, and all the things that represent you in that country. So the same way in Nigeria, we need to have that kind of capture that adds value to life. For example, if people change their accommodation today in Nigeria, you move from one part of the country to another or one part of a state to another, you do not tell anybody, you don't report to anybody, you just pack your bag, move there, you owe nobody any responsibility, you don't even tell your banks. But in other markets, because the identity management for them is value adding, you are the one, without being asked, that will go to your bank, your hospital, everywhere to update your data that you have moved accommodation. Because there are certain benefits that come from the system to you. And that is why the postal system is still functional in those countries. Why it's not functional here? Because they will post things to that residence, they will deliver things to that residence, and if you are not there, after a while, there will be some concerns about where you are. So, because we do not have functional identity management system, we don't know ourselves. That's why people can occupy forests, they can occupy anywhere, and live there and harm people and commit crime. Once you are captured, your face is captured in other places, or some form of identity of you is seen, you know you can never ever escape being caught. So we need that. We need to leverage technology massively to make the population that we have valuable and secure. So that's some consideration on the area of security. But when we talk largely about economic prosperity, as a country, we need to find ways and means by policies to build what I would call dual circulation economy, which basically thrives on 3 pillars. One is focus on domestic demand and expand it. We need to make our people productive. We need to stop putting subsidies in unproductive zones. Because when you give whether cash or some form of subsidy to people with inadequate or no income, they really cannot add value to the economy. That is largely consumption. Yes, they may buy food and all of that, but they are not adding value to the money you have given them. So our money have a way of flowing away out. For example, because most of the things we consume, we import them. And because we import them, as they consume, a larger portion of every consumption or the cash we are giving those people as subsidy gets out of the country. So we need to focus on building dual circulation economy where we expand domestic production and demand. And that is by making sure that the mass of the people have access to employment. And I'm going to talk about that as we go down the line. And how can we achieve this? First is that government must give the private sector more and more support to drive employment creation. We have mass population of young people. We need to open the floor for them to thrive with innovation. We need to open the floor for them to thrive in service. What is driving developed economies today? There are two things, largely technology, which is riding on innovation, and manufacturing. India is largely India and China simply represent the manufacturing hub of the world. And these also happen to be the most populated countries. Nigeria is also blessed with population. We need to turn this population to an advantage by ensuring that our people are well educated. These two countries, India, China, were poor countries, uneducated countries. Some decades back, they moved their people into the zone of education. They added value to their people. Some were made to go outside to the US to study, some to other parts. And after the education, they brought a lot of knowledge home, as well as improved the local educational system and standard. Today, that India and China, they are one of the richest countries in the world. So we need to take advantage of the same trajectory by ensuring that our people are educated. And I'm talking about value-adding education, education that can transit to employment creation, transit to innovation. Some of the syllabuses that are being taught in most of our universities today, they have to be relooked at, whether from science to business to social sciences and arts. They need to look at all of those things to ensure that they align to global standard and they represent the need of the moment, so that people, as they leave school, they continue from that point to follow the path of entrepreneurship, path of innovation, path of service generation to create employment. And that is the way we can actually thrive as a country. Secondly is that we need to also look at how do we add value to the primary production for global export. We need to build an economy that is focused outside, which is the same thing I will use again China did, by ensuring that not only are they as much as sustained locally, is that they are able to also produce for the world. Nigeria can take a bit of lesson. How do we turn the mass of primary production to add value to a mass of primary production, and that they fit and match global standard for export? That is the way to create prosperity. If you take, for example, today, we're all cutting down trees all over the country, but there is no mass forestation going on. One of the massive way to create wealth. If Nigeria decides that we want to create logs for the whole world, we have the land and we have to reforest and afforest all our land, and then we can send those as export. Nigeria can grow hundreds of millions of trees, and we can export that, for example. Rather than our forests being occupied by Boko Haram and all other kind of insurgents, we turn that to a path to wealth, and our young people can work in those spaces, and they can actually track through technology all trees planted in our forest and know when to harvest them for export or for local use. So we need to focus our economy as well on export, just as we are growing internal demand. This is very important. And finally, we must, on that point of dual economic circulation, we must reduce heavy dependence on foreign markets. We depend massively on foreign markets for food, for clothing, for furniture, for almost everything. We need to we need to find ways through expanding our local production and living within that to reduce our dependence on foreign markets if we want to be prosperous. Because the more we reduce our dependence on foreign markets and we increase our demand within the local space and export, that way our people, because they are productive and adding value to the production, whether by government creating center of excellence for processing, whether it's processing of plantain into some finished goods, processing of cassava into some finished goods, or adding value to cocoa, adding value to Ankara. Some Nigerians now, we have a runway in London where people are selling Ankara. So we create center of excellence for different kind of locally sourced production, where now they become global. We can attain global export through that. So the more we are able to export out of the country, the more revenue the country generates, and use that to thrive in the area of employment creation. Because the moment you have the mass of the people in employment or in productive sector, you are able to reduce subsidy for consumption. So the subsidy that you then impute are subsidy that engineers growth, because they go into productive sources rather than consumption sources. And then people can regurgitate that and make the revenue that they make from their business for consumption, rather than government handing out to people for consumption. So we need to actually do this. And that, again, we've seen in markets that have succeeded, where there are cottage industries today that are servicing multinationals, cottage industries of pop and mom that are servicing large corporations through the production of basic need of those large institutions. So the same way we can achieve in Nigeria once we educate our people. And of course, we're seeing great light in the startup space. We're seeing quite a few unicorns emerging in Nigeria, and their valuation in billions, which is good news. But we need to support more by policies. Government need to support more by policies to make it an enabling environment that will create more of that, and then make those companies today. For example, if Amazon is moving from one state to another, you see the mass of wealth that follows Amazon's movement. So you see all over the news, Amazon is moving from, they are opening an outlet in, for example, take Kansas City. Immediately the state hears that, you will see massive development happening. One, people start to move there. Two, they are repairing the airport in preparation to handle the kind of mass population that will come there. Three, new businesses start to look in that market. Four, housing prices start to go up. So people start to build equity to invest, because they've heard that one of the multi-trillion company is moving there. And that is because of the enabling environment that surrounds that movement. So, and that is how they've created cities within cities, cities within states in most of the developed countries. And the same way, we need to create more and more new cities in Nigeria. We can't live, when we talk about cities today, we only mention a few. We need to create new cities. that would lead to fresh urbanization, because the current cities have been created in the early 60s and 70s. They are very weak. Lagos State cannot take more people because we are not and everybody is still trying to come to Lagos, maybe go to Abuja, maybe a bit of Kano, a bit of Port Harcourt. But each state government can create new cities within their geographies that would direct employment there, that will make housing prices to go up, that will make life quite enjoyable for the people. So we need to find government in every state pursuing the creation of new cities where the population can go to and attract opportunities to those states. Attract banks there, give them some support, rather than always taxing the state. Federal government is taxing banks, state government is taxing them, and the same way with other companies that move there. Everybody is just trying to make more and more from them. So they limit the expansion that institutions that can actually bring prosperity to new zones can bring there. So they don't want to, because there is overtaxing and multi-taxing. So we need to look at this. Other notable points we can consider is, Nigeria is, we are blessed with 36 states, and then of course the federal capital. And if we will allow the states to function as proper federating units, and we take advantage of the comparative advantages of each state, there will be changes. So we need to find a way at the governmental level to incentivize sectors and states that show specific growth advantage. And I think we had that before in the regional structure. So we probably have to now go back to that, because it's cheaper for us to, it's one of the cheapest ways to create wealth, because the people within that geography have deeper knowledge or better knowledge of the resources that is within their zone, or they can attract institutions and expertise that would, of course, make those resources to add value to that state, and then, of course, eventually add value to the country. So, for example, again, I'm surprised that in Nigeria today we have a problem in the South where farming and oil activities cannot cohabit. But in other countries where they also have oil, you can actually find in the middle of a mass farming land, you find dredging activity going on. And this you have in America, through the corridor of Arizona down to Missouri and the like. You will see tons and tons and tons and tons of mini refineries and drilling activities in the middle of a mass farm on hectares and several hectares of land. Oil is being drilled and there is farming going on. We don't have that experience in Nigeria because we didn't allow states with certain specific resources to grow at their pace and to use enduring expertise to ensure that the resources there are captured appropriately. Now, those resources are turning to our disadvantages. Oil activity has destroyed the Niger Delta environment in terms of land and even the climate, or affected it negatively. In some states where you have precious metals, insurgency is not allowing that to function as a value-adding natural resources or precious resources that the country can benefit from. So we need to look at this as a very vital area of focus, so that, again, we retrace our development plan, whether at the state or federal level. This is very important. And then government can direct incentives properly to those places. And that's one of the ways that we can attract institutions that will help develop, whether it's private sector or joint ventures, that will properly develop this area. the enabling environment should also define the spheres of operation so that institutions don't commit crime, destroy environment, and then walk away. So it's very important that we look at this. And then, of course, is that as we recognize the uniqueness of each environment and the resources that they possess, we'll begin to build expertise along geographies. Expertise of, so we know that a lot of Niger Delta people, we have deep domain knowledge within the oil sector. We know that maybe in the Southwest, there is agriculture and other kinds of natural resources. They will have deep domain knowledge along that. And when we build this kind of aggregate expertise across oil and gas, solid mineral, and all of that, we can also export people to the world. Today, India is exporting people to the world in a structured manner, and they are bringing back mass wealth to their country. You go to most of the technology companies around the world, Indians are leading them. And it was a national agenda to do so. It was a national agenda to do so. Now you have some of the best technology schools, technology companies developing softwares in India, because apart from exporting those people to service the global economy and large corporations, and they bring in wealth into their country, they've also brought in experience over time into their country to create local content that has put India in the world map, as they were able to lift their people, millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. And that is the same thing we must do. I mean, there was a time India was the poverty capital of the world. I don't know how many of us check the poverty clock of the world. Today, India by seconds, they are having more than 100 people per second leaving the poverty line. And that's not the same for Nigeria. What we are having in Nigeria is people are retreating into poverty. If you just go on Google, just check the global poverty clock, you will see hundreds of Nigerians receding into poverty. Meanwhile, if you check India, you see hundreds of Indians leaving poverty by seconds. So this is the kind of thing we must do, because they were deliberate and intentional to ensure that resources are properly allocated, and of course, there is conscience to make people live the good life in spite of the challenges that they face. So we need to break up the taxation system and give revenue to states. And demand performance to the extent that we start to name and shame. And I think we are arriving there, given what we have seen in the way that the electioneering and primaries of this time is going, and the demand the population is starting to make. We hope that this is sustained, because it's until we get to that level of naming and shaming government and people that should do certain things and they are not doing them, I think at that point we are arriving at the zone where the nation can retrace its step back to prosperity, as we had in the 70s. So, and for me, I think once we have that economic system that is allowing our young people to thrive, growing small businesses, all over the world, small businesses, what we call the small growing businesses or SME, they are the major providers of employment. They service corporations, they service homes. And so the more we are able to create environment for businesses to thrive and grow and be created, the more we are creating our way to wealth and even security. One of the reasons why now you find more what is called Yahoo, fraud and all of those things is because people now direct the knowledge that they have acquired to easy money instead of productive arrangements. Because the enabling environment, we lack enabling environment to support solid wealth creation for small businesses. In developed markets again, and most prosperous markets where you find mass of the people as living the good life or are prosperous, you find that they have enabling environment for small businesses to grow. So we must, and they have different funding plans and patterns that support that, from government to venture capital to all kinds of investment zones and opportunities and funds, the same way we can create in Nigeria, such that across boards, people are able to find funding to support their businesses. So once we do that, you will see that we are changing the narrative for growth and prosperity. And of course, is that we must open supportive framework for growth, particularly in the service sector, because that is where most of our young people are looking at. And then, of course, is the need to build a globalizing economy. And what do we mean by globalizing economy? It's an economy basically that follows the trajectory of global growth. What is the world in need of? What do they need in America? What do they need in China? What do they need everywhere? And we are following the patterning our economy for export as much as we are meeting our demand locally. Because once we align our growth focus to the trajectory of global need, we will start to service the world. And what again, like I said, if you look at the example of China and India, is the same thing. They pursue a strategy that helped them to focus the pattern of their economic growth to the trajectory of global need. And they started to produce, educate their people around those things. The world needed technology. They educated their people towards that. The world needed manufacturing. They educated their people towards that. And they started to build enabling framework for that. And that is the way for us to be able to push growth if we want to make sure that our people are successful. And then once we do that, and we have that kind of economic agenda that is productive, and we're creating we set the path for wealth, we must then align our monetary and fiscal policies. Yes, to providing infrastructure, to providing policies, to providing security, to providing overarching economic integration plan that allows individuals to want to create businesses, to want to get employment in productive places, to want to commit their resources. And I'm talking about not just people that are in the class of what you call the rich. I'm talking about the normal average Nigerian wanting to commit his savings to go and set up a business. A student wanting to leave school with a passion to set up businesses. Because once we have more population of young people, students leaving school, going to set up businesses, being supported by people's savings, just like in most markets again, you find people using their 401k account to invest in businesses being set up by young people. And once they do that, you find that they turn that into 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, sometimes 1,000 times in return. Because this is considered safe haven, because the operating environment provides for sustained growth and assurance for you to at least propel success. So this is very important. Now, Nigeria as a country, whether this again will touch on government, is that we possibly have to look at the nature of capital that we get. We have too much of transit capital, and it looks like Nigeria is a betting zone for those that bring transit capital. They just bring the money, and within a couple of weeks or months, they've taken the money out. We need the government at the level of maybe the central bank, Ministry of Finance, the Economic Advisor's Office. We need to find a way to integrate, to create a balance of monetary and fiscal policy that will make us to trap some capital that will stay in the country for development. In every market, there is some form of system that helps to retain capital, enduring capital for growth. We need to find ways to get that done, so that we're not like a bet Niger economy, where people, or bet economy, where people just come, bring their resources, bring their money, buy a couple of our instruments, or invest in a few things, and then in a couple of months, that money is out of our domain. We've seen a few that have stayed, but I think we need more of that. And that's one of the ways. The more they stay, the more confidence building is assured once there is security and once there is enabling environment. On this note, I want to thank you for inviting us, and I'm hoping that each and every one of us will get set to be part of creating the narrative that will bring the change that we need towards a prosperous economy. On that note, I want to just thank you for inviting us and giving us the privilege to share a few points which I believe can precipitate further conversation at this gathering. And then, so again, my name is Olusegun Akonji. I work at Heritage Bank as the Chief Strategy Officer. Thank you.
Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner.